The Corvallis Ascendancy's invasion fleet materialized at Earth's orbital perimeter without warning, 347 warships against a scattering of 20 human defense stations. Fleet Sovereign Drivask watched the primitive installations on his tactical display with something approaching pity. This would be over in minutes. Broadcast the standard terms, Drivask ordered, settling into his command throne aboard the dreadnought Eternal Dominance. His chitinous plating clicked softly as he moved, a sound that had preceded the fall of 47 civilizations. Let them understand the futility of resistance. The communications officer's mandibles clacked in acknowledgement. Across the void, the message transmitted in every language humanity had ever broadcast into space. Surrender. Subjugation. The mercy of the Ascendancy for those wise enough to kneel. On the bridge of the TCSS Iron Testament, Commander Sarah Okonkwo read the alien demands without expression. Around her, the compact command deck hummed with quiet efficiency. No panic. No desperate communications. Her crew moved with the practiced calm of people who'd been preparing for this exact moment since before most of them were born. Tactical assessment, Lieutenant Webb, she said. Marcus Webb's fingers danced across his console. 347 confirmed hostiles. 12 dreadnought class, 68 heavy cruisers, the rest destroyers and support craft. Energy signatures match the Corvallis patterns we've been studying. Shield frequencies are exactly where the simulations predicted. Engineering? Chief Engineer Aria Colombo's voice crackled over the comm. Reactors at full capacity, Commander. Weapon systems are green across the board. The package is ready when you are. Okonkwo allowed herself the ghost of a smile. 52 years. Humanity had maintained absolute radio silence for 52 years after detecting the first Corvallis scout probes, building in the dark while the galaxy assumed Earth was still crawling with chemical rockets and nuclear warheads. Let them keep assuming. Ensign Park, broadcast our response. The young communications officer's hands hesitated for just a moment over the controls before her training took over. Transmitting now, ma'am. The message was short. A single word that had echoed through human history in 100 different languages, on 1,000 different battlefields, no. Drivask's secondary eyes widened in his equivalent of surprise. They refuse? He leaned forward, studying the cluster of human positions. The defense stations were pathetically sparse, barely a fraction of what any civilized species would maintain. Beyond them, the blue-green world turned in blissful ignorance. Do they not comprehend the forces arrayed against them? Perhaps they require a demonstration, Fleet Sovereign, his tactical coordinator suggested. Very well. Target their outermost station. Full bombardment. Leave nothing but debris. The Eternal Dominance and 3 heavy cruisers adjusted position, their weapons arrays charging with lethal intent. At 40,000 kilometers, they opened fire. Plasma lances capable of vaporizing small moons streaked across the void in brilliant cascades of destructive energy. The defense station's shields flared bright, absorbing the initial volley. Then the second. The third. On the fourth, the shields collapsed and the station itself began to buckle, hull plating peeling away in molten strips. But it didn't explode. Instead, as the Corvallis weapons chewed through its outer hull, something else happened. The station's entire structure seemed to shift, segments rotating on internal mechanisms that shouldn't exist in such primitive architecture. And from ports that had appeared to be simple communications arrays, the station returned fire. Not with plasma. Not with energy weapons at all. Solid tungsten rods, each one massing 50 tons and accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, crossed the distance in seconds. The Eternal Dominance's shields, calibrated for energy weapons and particle beams, might as well have been gossamer. The first rod punched through the dreadnought's forward deflector screen like it wasn't there and buried itself 3 decks deep into the ship's armored hull. The second struck the heavy cruiser Rising Glory amidships, the kinetic impact releasing enough energy to light up every sensor in the fleet. Alarms shrieked across Corvallis bridges. Damage reports flooded in. The Rising Glory listed badly, venting atmosphere from a wound that stretched 12 decks. The Eternal Dominance had lost forward weapons arrays and primary shield generators. Impossible, Drevask breathed. Their technology level, the analysis said. The analysis was incomplete, Fleet Sovereign. His science officer's voice carried an edge of fear. Those projectiles bypassed our shields entirely. The kinetic energy alone, I'm reading explosive yields equivalent to tactical fusion weapons. On the Iron Testament, Webb allowed himself a grim smile. Direct hits on their flagship and one heavy cruiser. The Dreadnought is wounded but operational. Heavy cruiser is combat ineffective. Reload time on the defense stations? Okonkwo asked. 40 seconds for the mass drivers. But Commander, they're adjusting. The Corvallis are redistributing their formation, pulling back to 36,000 kilometers. Let them think. Ensign Park, patch me through to Admiral Chen at Luna Command. The holographic display shimmered, resolving into the weathered features of Admiral Richard Chen. Behind him, the vast command center coordinated humanity's hidden fleet across 3 orbital zones. Commander Okonkwo. I see you've bloodied their nose. First contact protocol executed, Admiral. They're reassessing now. Estimated 2 to 4 minutes before they commit to a second attack vector. Chen nodded slowly. The stealth fleet is in position. Covenant protocols are active across all installations. When they come again, they'll come hard. Are you ready for Phase 2? We've been ready for 52 years, sir. Drevask stared at the tactical display as if it had personally betrayed him. The human defense stations, he counted them again, carefully, showed no additional reinforcements. 20 installations against his armada. The logical part of his mind insisted this was still overwhelming advantage. One exchange, however surprising, didn't change the fundamental mathematics of warfare. They got lucky, he announced to his bridge crew, hearing the uncertainty in his own voice. One surprise doesn't win wars. Adjust shield harmonics to compensate for kinetic impacts. Deploy additional point defense systems. All ships, maintain formation and advance to engagement range. We'll overwhelm them with volume of fire. The fleet moved forward in a wave of death, 346 warships, the Rising Glory had fallen back, trailing debris, closing on Earth's orbital defenses. Their weapons charged again, ready to demonstrate what happened when primitive civilizations rejected the mercy of the ascendancy. What they didn't see were the 23 human ships powering up from silent running in the shadow of Luna, their reactor signatures masked by the moon's bulk. What they didn't detect were the 47 additional vessels hiding in Earth's debris rings, their hulls coated with adaptive camouflage that rendered them invisible to Corvallis sensors. And what they absolutely didn't notice were the 61 mines, each massing 300 tons of shaped nuclear fury. That had been drifting in their projected approach vector for the past 18 hours. Commander Okonkwo watched her tactical display with the patience of a predator. On her screens, the Corvallis fleet advanced in their standard battle formation, exactly as the simulations had predicted. Exactly as planned. Webb, status on stealth assets? Hidden fleet reports full combat readiness. Admiral Chen confirms release authority. We're clear to prosecute targets at your discretion, Commander. Weapons free on the mines? Awaiting your mark. The Corvallis reached optimal firing range. Drevask opened his mandibles to give the order for full bombardment. Across his fleet, weapons arrays hummed with enough destructive potential to sterilize continents. Okonkwo's finger hovered over the activation command. She thought of her grandmother, who'd been 12 when the first Corvallis probe was detected in the outer system. She thought of 5 decades of silence, of sacrifice, of an entire civilization preparing in the dark while the galaxy assumed Earth was helpless. She thought of the children in the shelters beneath the surface, waiting to see if their parents' generation had built something strong enough to protect them. "Execute," she said softly. The void ignited. 61 nuclear devices detonated simultaneously across a three-dimensional grid that perfectly bracketed the Corvallis advance fleet. Not the crude fission weapons of Earth's distant past, but refined fusion devices shaped by magnetic fields to direct their fury in precisely calculated vectors. The expanding plasma waves struck the Corvallis formation like the hammer of an angry god. Shields failed. Hulls buckled. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds tumbled through space, their crews overwhelmed by radiation they'd never imagined facing in void combat. The Corvallis had fought hundreds of battles across their empire's expansion. Not one had involved nuclear weapons. The galactic community had abandoned such primitive, indiscriminate tools millennia ago. Humanity had refined them into an art form. Drivask's display went white, then red with damage reports. 18 ships destroyed outright. 41 combat ineffective. The beautiful formation shattered into chaos as captains broke ranks, desperately trying to escape the kill zone. And that's when Earth's hidden fleet decloaked and opened fire from 3 directions at once. The first human salvo struck before the Corvallis could process what was happening. 23 warships that hadn't existed on sensors a heartbeat ago unleashed concentrated railgun fire into the disorganized fleet. Tungsten penetrators traveling at .27 light speed tore through shields already weakened by nuclear fury. The destroyer's swift judgment ceased to exist in a spray of superheated metal. 2 more frigates followed seconds later. "All batteries, continuous fire," Okonkwo commanded. "Target their command ships first. Webb, paint me their flagship." "Tagged and tracked, Commander." Distance 32,000 kilometers and closing. The Iron Testament pivoted on maneuvering thrusters, her main batteries swinging to bear on the Eternal Dominance. 6 Mark 9 railguns fired in sequence, each projectile carrying the kinetic energy of a small asteroid impact. Drivask's dreadnought took 3 hits before its point defense systems adapted, the massive ship shuddering under impacts that cratered armor plating 6 meters thick. Aboard the Eternal Dominance, chaos reigned. Drivask gripped his command throne as another impact sent debris cascading across the bridge. "Return fire. All ships, convergent bombardment on that vessel." He jabbed a claw toward the Iron Testament on his display. 43 Corvallis warships redirected their weapons arrays. Plasma lances converged on the human ship's position in a coordinated strike that should have vaporized anything smaller than a moon. The Iron Testament wasn't there anymore. Acceleration profile indicates 12 gravities sustained, the Corvallis science officer reported, his voice cracking. 12 gravities. Our crews would be paced. How are they? They evolved on a high-gravity world, Drivask realized, ice flooding his circulatory system. The briefing mentioned it. 0.98 standard gravities. But that shouldn't allow for. Webb's console chimed with target locks. 6 cruisers trying to flank. Deploying countermeasures. The Iron Testament released a cloud of what appeared to be simple chaff. The Corvallis weapons tracked through it, plasma bolts designed to burn through electronic interference. What they encountered instead were 3,000 micromines, each no larger than a human fist, each packed with shaped charges that detonated in precise sequence to create a wall of shrapnel moving at hypersonic velocities. 2 cruisers died instantly, their hulls shredded. A third tumbled away, life support failing. The remaining 3 broke off, captains refusing to fly into that meat grinder. In Luna Command, Admiral Chen watched the tactical overview with grim satisfaction. 74 Corvallis ships combat ineffective or destroyed in the first 8 minutes. Humanity's losses, 0. Sir, we're receiving requests from the stealth squadrons, his operations officer reported. They want to press the attack, run a full wolf pack through their rear formations. Chen considered the board. The Corvalli were reeling but still dangerous. 300 ships, even disorganized, could do catastrophic damage if they broke through to Earth's surface. Approved. Release squadrons Echo and Foxtrot. Tell them to make it hurt. 47 human ships dropped their camouflage and accelerated into the Corvalli rear echelons like sharks hitting a school of fish. The engagement turned into a close-quarters brawl that the invaders were catastrophically unprepared for. Corvalli doctrine emphasized formation warfare, coordinated bombardments from optimal range. Human commanders had spent 52 years studying that doctrine and built a fleet designed to shatter it. The TCSS Relentless roared through the gap between two Corvalli cruisers at velocities that made her crew's inertial dampeners scream in protest. Captain Torres, strapped into her acceleration couch, felt her vision narrow from the G-forces even with the dampeners at maximum. 12 gravities. The Corvalli crews would be unconscious or dead. Humanity's crews trained at 15. Broadside, she commanded through clenched teeth. The Relentless fired every lateral weapon simultaneously at ranges measured in kilometers instead of thousands. Railgun slugs punched clean through both cruisers' engineering sections. Missiles, not the clever guided munitions of galactic warfare but simple chemical rockets with fusion warheads, followed. The explosions bloomed like brief suns, consuming the wounded ships entirely. Drivask watched his fleet disintegrate on the tactical display. Numbers that had seemed overwhelming mere minutes ago dwindled with terrifying speed. 112 ships destroyed or disabled. The humans hadn't lost a single vessel. "Withdraw," he said hoarsely. "All ships, disengage and withdraw to rally point Theta." His tactical coordinator's mandibles clacked in distress. "Fleet Sovereign, we still outnumber them nearly 3-1. If we consolidate and look at the projections." Drivask roared. "At current engagement rates, we'll lose another 50 ships in the next 6 minutes. They're faster, their weapons bypass our defenses, and they can maneuver in ways our crews physically cannot match. Withdraw now before we have nothing left to withdraw with." The Corvalli fleet began a fighting retreat, ships laying down covering fire as they burned hard for the system's edge. It was the right tactical decision. It was also exactly what the humans had planned for. "They're running," Webb reported. "Vectors indicate they're heading for minimum safe jump distance." Okonkwo nodded slowly. "Chief Colombo, is the gate ready?" The engineer's voice carried savage satisfaction. "You're going to love this, Commander. Activating now." At the system's edge, where the Corvalli fleet was burning toward safety, space itself began to twist. The distortion wasn't natural. Nothing about it matched any known phenomenon. It was artificial, deliberate, and it was spreading. Drivask's science officer stared at his instruments in horror. "Fleet Sovereign, there's a gravity well forming along our escape vector. It's artificial. They've created an artificial gravity well that's blocking our jump calculations." "How?" Drivask demanded. "We've never seen any species with the technology to manipulate spacetime on that scale." "Neither had we," the science officer whispered. "Until 47 seconds ago. The gravity well. Humanity called it an interdiction field, a theoretical concept made real through 50 years of dedicated research, expanded to envelope the entire battle space. No ship could jump to faster than light while inside it. The Corvalli were trapped in system with an enemy that was systematically destroying them. "New contacts," Webb announced. "I'm reading another 36 human ships decloaking at grid 77. They've been hiding in the asteroid belt." Okonkwo allowed herself a cold smile. "All ships, pursue the retreating fleet. Don't let them regroup. Admiral Chen, status on the surface-to-orbit batteries? Chen's image flickered onto her display. Magnetic accelerators are charged and tracking. We've got firing solutions on their entire fleet. On your word, Commander. The Corvalli retreat dissolved into rout as Earth itself opened fire. Massive electromagnetic launchers built into the planet's surface, hidden in mountains and ocean trenches, launched projectiles that made the defense station's railguns look like toys. Each slug massed 200 tons and reached velocities that stressed the theoretical limits of conventional acceleration. A Corvalli heavy cruiser took a direct hit and simply disintegrated, the kinetic impact releasing more energy than its reactor core contained. Another lost its entire aft section, tumbling through space as its surviving crew broadcast desperate distress signals. "This is insane," Drevask's communications officer said, watching the destruction. "We are the Ascendancy. We have conquered 47 systems. We have weapons that can crack planets. How are we losing to a species that still broadcasts entertainment signals into space?" "Because we believed those signals," Drevask replied quietly. "We thought we understood them. We were wrong." He pulled up the intelligence briefing they'd used to plan this invasion. Humanity, technological development level 7, conventional chemical propulsion, primitive nuclear fission capability, fractured political structure. Every single assessment had been based on decades-old radio transmissions. Every assumption built on the image humanity had deliberately projected to the galaxy. The transmissions had stopped 52 years ago. The Corvalli had assumed it was technological failure. It had been preparation. "Open a channel," Drevask ordered. "To the human commander. Quantum encryption, direct beam." The communications officer hesitated, then complied. Moments later, Commander Okonkwo's face appeared on his display. She looked almost bored. "Fleet Sovereign Drevask," she said. "I'd say this is unexpected, but we've been running simulations of this conversation for 3 decades. What can I do for you?" "Surrender terms," Drevask managed. We surrender. Cease fire. We will withdraw from your system and never return." Okonkwo's expression didn't change. "No." "What? You came to subjugate us. You broadcast your intention to every human listening station in the system. You fired on our installations without provocation. And now, because you're losing, you want to leave?" She leaned forward slightly. "Here's what's going to happen, Fleet Sovereign. You're going to order every ship in your fleet to cut engines and drop shields. You're going to transmit your surrender to every Corvalli vessel and to your homeworld. And then you're going to sit there while we decide what to do with you. And if I refuse?" Webb spoke up from off-screen, his voice carrying across the channel. "Then we continue what we started. Current Corvalli losses: 147 ships destroyed, 63 disabled. Our losses: some scuffed paint on the Vigilant and 1 burned-out sensor array. We can do this all day, Fleet Sovereign. Can you?" Drevask looked at his tactical display. At the human fleet that outnumbered his remaining functional ships. At the surface batteries that could reach across the system. At the gravity well that kept them trapped like fish in a barrel. "One question," he said. "How long have you been preparing for this?" Okonkwo's smile was cold. "Since we detected your first probe, 52 years ago. We went silent. We built. We watched. And we waited for you to make the mistake of underestimating us. Your entire civilization, 5 decades of preparation. We call it the long silence. Every human government, every corporation, every citizen working toward one goal, making sure that when you came, you'd regret it." She gestured off-screen. "You're down to 91 functional warships, Fleet Sovereign. I have another 60 ships I haven't even deployed yet, plus the defense stations, plus Earth's surface batteries. This isn't a battle anymore. It's a demonstration. So I'll ask once more, are you surrendering? Drivask's mandibles trembled as he transmitted the fleet-wide surrender order. All Corvalli vessels, cease fire and drop shields. Power down weapon systems. We yield. Across the scattered remains of the Ascendancy's invasion force, captains who had never known defeat complied with numb disbelief. 91 warships went dark, their crews staring at displays showing human vessels closing in from every direction. Some ships didn't respond. Their bridges destroyed, their commanders dead, their crews fighting fires or sealing hull breaches. Those that could surrender did so with the bitter taste of the impossible. Confirmed shutdown on 87 vessels, Webb reported. 4 ships aren't responding. 2 appear to be destroyed hulks drifting. The other 2. He zoomed the tactical display. They're running, Commander. Breaking formation and burning hard for the interdiction field boundary. Okonkwo watched the fleeing ships. A heavy cruiser and a destroyer accelerate desperately toward the edge of humanity's gravity well. Admiral Chen, your call. Chen's expression hardened. Let them see what happens to those who don't respect the terms. Surface batteries, target those 2 ships. Demonstrate maximum range. From Earth's surface, 2 electromagnetic launchers fired. The slugs crossed 300,000 kilometers in 18 seconds, their targeting so precise that both fleeing ships took hits within milliseconds of each other. The destroyer came apart like a child's toy. The heavy cruiser survived the first impact but tumbled out of control, its reactor going critical 3 seconds later. Message received, Drivask said quietly, watching his ships die. The remaining fleet will comply fully. Aboard the Iron Testament, Chief Engineer Colombo's voice crackled over the comm, Commander, we've got secondary explosions on the surrendered dreadnought Crimson Eternity. Their reactors destabilizing. Estimate 90 seconds until breach. Life signs? 340 crew still alive in the aft sections. They've lost primary power. No functioning escape pods. Okonkwo made the calculation in a heartbeat. The Corvalli had come to subjugate humanity. They'd fired first. They deserved everything they'd gotten. But 340 beings trapped in a dying ship. Deploy rescue shuttles, she ordered. Get our people over there. Colombo, can we stabilize their reactor remotely? Not remotely, but if we can get an engineering team aboard, maybe. It'll be tight, Commander. Then make it happen. Webb, coordinate with the rescue craft. Anyone who tries to resist gets stunned and dragged to safety anyway. We're not here to execute prisoners. Lieutenant Webb grinned fiercely. Copy that. Dispatching rescue teams now. Drivask watched on his screens as human shuttles, small, fast craft bristling with weapons but flying with medical transponders active, burned toward the dying dreadnought. His tactical officer looked at him with unconcealed confusion. They're saving them? Apparently. Drivask's voice carried something that might have been wonder. They could let those crews die. Saving them exposes their personnel to risk. But they're doing it anyway. The rescue operation took 14 minutes. Human engineers in combat-rated EVA suits swarmed through the Crimson Eternity's shattered hull, hauling unconscious Corvalli crew members to safety while Chief Colombo herself bypassed 3 separate system failures to bring the reactor back to stable idle. When the last Corvalli survivor was loaded onto a shuttle, the human teams withdrew with professional efficiency. 312 lives saved. 28 had died before the humans could reach them. They're predators, Drivask's science officer said, watching the rescue footage. Death World apex predators. Every instinct says they should be savage, merciless. Instead they risk themselves to save enemies who tried to kill them. I don't understand this species. Neither did we, Drivask admitted. That's why we lost. In Luna Command, Admiral Chen surveyed the aftermath with grim satisfaction. The Corvallis invasion force. What remained of it, sat dead in space under the guns of humanity's fleet. 87 functional ships surrendered. 160 destroyed outright. Estimated Corvallis casualties, 73,000 dead, 42,000 wounded or captured. Human losses, the defense station that took the initial bombardment was damaged but reparable. 47 crew dead from secondary explosions. 3 ships with moderate damage. The rescue operation had cost 2 lives when an unstable bulkhead collapsed. 49 humans dead. 73,000 Corvallis. "Sir, we're receiving transmissions from across the sector," his communications officer reported. "Multiple species detected the battle. They're requesting information. Some are asking if Earth needs assistance. Others are just demanding to know what happened." Chen considered that. For 52 years, humanity had been silent. Radio dark. A mystery to the galaxy. Let them wonder a little longer. "Prepare a message," he said slowly. "Broadcast it on all frequencies, every language we've decoded. Keep it simple. The Corvallis Ascendancy attempted to invade Earth. They failed. Sol system is now a restricted zone. Any vessel entering without authorization will be treated as hostile. Humanity does not seek conflict, but we will not tolerate aggression. Govern yourselves accordingly." The message transmitted across quantum channels and conventional radio, spreading through the galactic network at the speed of light and faster where quantum relays existed. Species that had dismissed humanity as primitive chemical rocket barbarians suddenly had to reconcile that assumption with the complete destruction of the Corvallis invasion fleet. On a trade station orbiting a Quilix colony world, Ambassador Velix watched the battle recordings that had leaked through back channels. She saw human ships accelerating at velocities that should have killed their crews. She saw weapons that bypassed every known defense. She saw an entire planet weaponized with magnetic launchers that could strike across a solar system. Her hands shook as she updated her species star charts. Sol system, Omega threat level. Approach restricted. Recommended response, peaceful contact only. She wasn't the only one. Across 40 species territory, intelligence analysts and military planners watched the recordings and reached the same conclusion. Humanity wasn't prey. They were predators who'd been playing dead. Aboard the Eternal Dominance, Drivask received a transmission from the Ascendancy's high command. His superiors wanted explanations. Justifications. An understanding of how their routine subjugation had turned into the worst military defeat in Corvallis history. He composed his response carefully. "We underestimated them. We assumed their silence was weakness. We believed our intelligence assessments based on decades-old transmissions. We were catastrophically wrong. Earth is not a primitive backwater. It is a fortress world inhabited by apex predators who spent half a century preparing for our arrival. Recommendation: immediate withdrawal from all sectors near Sol. Reclassify humanity as extreme threat. Never engage unless absolutely necessary, and then only with overwhelming force from species specifically adapted to high-gravity combat." He paused, then added one final line: "They beat us with kinetic weapons, nuclear devices, and tactics we considered obsolete. Imagine what they'll build in the next 50 years now that they're no longer hiding. I recommend we hope they remain peaceful." The transmission sent, Drivask slumped in his command throne. Around him, his bridge crew tended to damaged systems and processed their surrender with hollow eyes. They'd come expecting easy conquest. They'd found hell wearing a human face. Commander Okonkwo stood on the observation deck of the Iron Testament, watching the captured Corvallis fleet under guard. Behind her, the blue-green jewel of Earth turned in peaceful rotation, unscathed by the battle that had raged in its orbital space. Lieutenant Webb approached quietly. Final casualty reports are in, Commander. 47 dead on the defense station, 2 in the rescue operation. The memorial service is scheduled for 1800 hours. I'll be there. Okonkwo's reflection in the viewport showed no triumph, just quiet determination. They gave their lives to protect home. We owe them that much. We also owe them the victory, Webb said. They died knowing we won. We did more than win, Marcus. We sent a message. She gestured at the surrendered fleet. Every species watching this will know what happens when someone tries to conquer Earth. Not just that we can fight back, that we prepared for 52 years in absolute silence, building a military that could shatter a galactic powers invasion fleet. That's the real message: humanity doesn't bluff. We plan. We prepare. We execute. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the comm display. Commander Okonkwo, well done. The Corvalli are asking what we intend to do with their survivors. Medical care for the wounded, internment for the rest until we establish formal contact with their government. We'll return them eventually, after they've had time to think about what happened here. Agreed. And Commander? The President wants to speak with you. Apparently there are discussions about what comes next. Humanity's been silent for half a century. Now the galaxy knows we're here, and we're not helpless. Things are going to change. Okonkwo smiled slightly. Let them change. We've proven we can handle whatever comes. Earth doesn't start wars, Admiral. But we damn sure finish them. Chen nodded approvingly. Get some rest, Commander. Tomorrow we start planning for the galaxy we just introduced ourselves to. Today, you earned it. The transmission ended. Okonkwo stood alone in the observation deck, watching Earth turn beneath her. Somewhere down there, children played in parks, unaware of the battle that had raged overhead. Families gathered for dinner. Life continued, protected by people willing to stand between home and those who would threaten it. 52 years of silence. 52 years of preparation. One battle to prove that humanity belonged among the stars, not as victims, but as equals. As predators who could smile, show mercy, and still destroy anyone foolish enough to mistake kindness for weakness. The Corvalli had learned that lesson in Blood and Fire. The galaxy was learning it now, analyzing battle data and updating threat assessments. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the first impression was carved in the wreckage of an empire's hubris. Commander Sarah Okonkwo turned from the viewport and headed to the memorial service, where she would honor those who'd paid the price for victory. Behind her, Earth continued its eternal rotation, a blue jewel defended by steel and determination. The long silence was over. Humanity had spoken. And the galaxy was listening.